would you recommend, like the biggest advice you can give as far as like the year before I'm about to like hopefully come to New York or go out into this business? Like what advice can you give to anyone who's right on the cusp of getting there?
Yeah, what a great question. I'm a big believer in networking. I'm a big believer in taking, you know, while I love to say that a lot of things are based in talent, it's also based in who you know. It's also based in the way you approach people. And that could mean while you are preparing for your next year of senior year before you graduate, that could mean asking people if you could intern at theater companies, asking people if you can do informational interviews with them. Even though I went a different route, I still did internships. I got in touch with people in the field that I was in at the time to learn as much as I possibly could. I'm a big believer in the fact that just because you're going to be graduating doesn't mean that you should ever stop learning from here on out. I might have had really great success in the past couple of years, but that could also be very fleeting, here today, gone tomorrow. So I'm a huge advocate in the fact that I'm a hustler all the way, but for the right reasons and to be kind. You're going to find yourself in a lot of different audition rooms once everything gets back to normal and busy. You're going to find yourself in a lot of rooms with a lot of different people and a lot of different personalities. I always say, be yourself. Choose maybe 3 to 5 goals that you want to have for yourself. And the 5th one could be the fact that you want to move to New York and start auditioning. But before that, it should be, let me talk to a stage manager of a theater that I might be really fond of in Indiana. Let me go and do a little bit of like the backstage production side of things at the Cabaret. Let me see how things work. Let me meet a couple of these performers that are coming in and ask them about their background and how they got there. I guarantee you, everybody will want to tell you about themselves because that's what we do. And you will wind up with a Rolodex of names that you can call and ask, hey, let's have a coffee. It shouldn't be about, I'm also a big believer in, I'm not going to call and ask you for a gig. I'm a big advocate of, let me lay down some foundation of people who I want to be in the same room with and people who I want to be associated with, because that will take you to the next level. And it's not all about, how do I get this role? How do I get into this room? How do I make this casting director like me? Because everybody's going to be doing that. So the tools that I like to say are, get into rooms with people who you respect. Your authenticity and your vulnerability of who you truly are will shine through, and people will want to keep you in those circles. And you will start getting phone calls and things will happen organically. But remember also, this is not a race, especially right now. This is not a race, man. This is a marathon. Prepare accordingly. That means there's no sprint associated with this. You're going to tire out and burn out real quick.
So when you talk about vulnerability, can you explain like what led you to understand that better, and like maybe an experience that helped you like sink into that new skin better and just like understand what that meant for you as a performer and what that entailed?
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, I have gone through several real life experiences that have been so mind-bogglingly difficult, right? And I've had enough therapy in my life, for those of us who love therapy. I love therapy. But I have gotten to some rock bottom places in my life where I was too proud to ask for help. And I shortly realized thereafter that being vulnerable and asking for help in those situations is actually strength at the end of the day. When it comes to, I find the people that I respect and align with the most are those who have had to really crawl out of difficulty by themselves. There is something really human and really humiliating in a good way about having to get out of difficulty, whatever that difficulty may be, but to have to do it on your own. gives you a lot of strength in feeling okay with who you are. As a performer, it's no secret that I've done some really difficult roles. And when I accepted the role of Elphaba, I had done several cabaret shows at that point before I went out on the road. And because you get visited by assistant directors and choreographers every 2 weeks to watch you perform, they make it their job to break you down pretty harshly. And that in turn, I had to prove to myself how strong I was. So, and you do that without apology. And when you figure out, and it takes everybody their own time frame. I mean, it happened, I figured it out after 30. I thought I was like the last rat in the race to figure this out. But it made me realize who I truly was, which was an unapologetic, really honest human being. And I can't be anything but that. And that might suck for some people sometime, but I do value honesty and vulnerability. And vulnerability is a really scary thing. We talk about it all the time. We're like, oh, babe, why won't you open up to me and be more vulnerable? A story of my life in relationships. However, it's a really difficult thing to do. And I consider the shows that I'm doing and the cabarets that I do to be a relationship with the people who I'm talking to. And if I'm not willing to strip down and tell you the truth about who I am, how can I expect an audience to really be engaged? But again, it takes practice. It's not like your first show, it's going to be like, you guys, this is my authentic self. Live it, love it. No, I mean, it took me a little while to get there, which is why I did themes for shows sometimes, which is why I had, banter worked into certain places in shows, because it made me feel less scared. And you grow with each process that you're going through. But it's a muscle like anything else that you just have to keep working and realize at the end of the day, you may think that you're in a different spot than everybody else, and you may feel anxious or depressed or, however many feelings that you feel at the end of the day, but it's still okay to be who you are.
So I always have issues trying to make my patter provocative. So whenever I've put together a cabaret piece, I've always tried to just nullify the patter and do it with the song lyrics instead, and change up the song lyrics.
Okay, explain that to me.
I don't know. I find it easier to be to express myself through the song, and I want to get better at making my cabaret patter provocative, but it's always, it just sounds like cliche whenever I say it or write something.
Interesting. I mean, the show that I did after, just to give you a little bit of context, the show that I did after my very first cabaret show, I switched the location to a place called Joe's Pub, which is a lot more of what I would consider a rock and roll setting. And the show title at the time was You Asked For It, because everybody had kept saying, when are you going to do a second show? When are you going to do a second show? And at the time, what I had struggled with was also, I think, probably a little bit of what you're talking about, which was, how do I not sound like I'm maybe reading from a teleprompter and this sounds really stupid? So what we created was You Asked For It, which was an 80-minute journey of me trying to become a gay icon in 80 minutes. Which provided, and by the way, I did it, you guys, which provided a way for me to allow patter that could be super cheesy. So it was kind of my sophomore moment of figuring out how to connect different songs with the huge theme of how do we become a gay icon? That automatically put me in the driver's seat of what songs do I have to sing here that would resemble what a gay icon would do. Rainbow High from Evita. anything Streisand. I absolutely did Bette Midler. I absolutely, you know, I still had my guests. I did some Beyonce things, and that was like, that show kind of spoke for itself when putting together the patter for that. I also did a Q&A section. That was my very first real iteration of doing a Q&A with the audience, which as you get further on in your cabaret career, I find it kind of fun to even take some questions sometimes and look at it and go, not answering that. Thank you so much. And people love it. People love it. You'd be surprised. And I know what it is that you're saying, where it kind of feels extremely uncomfortable. But I do challenge you to sit with the discomfort a little bit before just going back to your tried and true, let me say this through lyrics of a song, or let me change these lyrics up because that's what feels more comfortable for me. I challenge you to go outside of the box a little bit and to take, even while you're sitting at home right now in quarantina, take a piece of paper, take 5 songs that you could consider maybe what you're going through in your life right now, and write a little pattern between every single one of them. And you know what? You could write a sentence in between every single one of them that you can expand upon without having to feel like you're saying, hello, my name is Jonathan. Weird. Quarantine's weird. You know, I've been there and I know what that feels like. But also practice in allowing yourself to stumble and feel the discomfort a little bit is going to make you grow as a cabaret performer. And trust me when I tell you that audience members, there's nothing more comforting to an audience member than watching you feel comfortable with yourself and watching you be, I mean, who here is scared of the word vulnerable? Hi, how are you? I'm here to tell you that vulnerability is your number one superpower in cabaret. It's your number one superpower, period. To strip yourself down and put yourself on stage in front of hundreds of people in that kind of setting, to me, is much more vulnerable than playing Elphaba in a 3,000 seat theater. Much more vulnerable. When I'm standing in front of people, I see everybody's face in front of me. And you have to be, and it doesn't mean that you have to get there overnight, but you have to be comfortable with who you are. Because getting up there is going to be a huge challenge anyway, because it's extremely scary. And there are a small group of us that are very good at it, and we can bring joy to those who are watching it. But it does take an extreme amount of vulnerability, I think, to get there. It took me a long time to understand it and to really be okay with doing it that way. But it will shift your perspective on what your show is like / how the audience reacts to you. I guarantee it. I guarantee you that. And that will make people want to keep coming back because it feels conversational. I know a lot of people who don't do cabarets that are conversational. Not a fan. That's just not for me. I love making people feel like they are part of my show because they came there for a reason. So I challenge you to, because stepping into that, get out of your comfort zone, it's going to feel so absolutely weird and like you have a new skin on, but it will make you a better performer.
Kind of regarding how you go and like choose songs for your show, like do you do like, oh, I really like this song, I'm going to find a story to fit it, or are you like, this is the story I'm telling, this is a song that I could do? How do you go about navigating that?
Yeah, I love that. I have found for myself that I have to get the story in place first for me. I have done a couple of things where I've had a story in mind of what it is that I want to tell. For example, the show that I did after I left the tour, the Wicked tour, was called Being Green. So that kind of in place was my experience touring, and it was what it was life after tour. So what I usually do is I take like either a little notepad, because I'm a really visual person. I have to like pen to paper to see things. or if I'm on my phone, I take out my little notes thing. And I try and think of, because it'll happen to you when you're walking down the street, when you're riding public transportation, when you're eating dinner, you're like, oh shit, I've got and I always write it down. Not every song is going to go into my show. I will say, like, here's these 13 songs that I really want to do that make me think of what life was like on tour and then off of tour. Some of those songs didn't make the cut. A couple of the songs, like I so badly wanted to do a Taylor Swift song that I was like, girl, come on, you're not going to put this in your show. What's happening? I love her to pieces, but it didn't make it into my show. And it had to be things like, I did the song It's Not Easy Being Green. That was like a simple, okay, Kermit the Frog moment. Everybody's going to get it. I like to throw things in shows, by the way, because you're not going to be sure what your age range is in shows. Sort of think about it like that as well. My age range is pretty large at this point. I'd say I'm like 17 to 45 median area. So, and all different walks of life. So I like to choose songs that everybody knows. And then I always like to introduce people to new songs as well. I try and I get lost if I say, wow, I really want to do a song by Demi Lovato. Okay, how am I going to make a show around that? That will take me so many more hours to figure out versus saying, I'm going to do a show on the fact that I'm quarantined right now, and that's what the show is going to be about. And here are a list of songs that I feel work themselves into that versus the other way around. I'm sure everybody's brain works differently in that capacity, but for me, I have to have the idea of the show as an umbrella, just like word vomit a lot of songs into that arena and then take and pluck things out as they don't seem to make sense. Plus, if you work with a trusted musical director, which I highly recommend you find your person, it is like, hey, it's like a life partner, but they're your musical life partner. They are your saving grace. They're going to be the ones to help you figure out and navigate your show. And they will become, they are a part of you as well when it comes to putting this stuff together. And so I can have an idea and say, how do you feel about this? And she'll say, I love that, but not for this show. So I always love having somebody you respect a lot in your corner just to bounce ideas off of, because you're not always going to be right.
Hi, I just wondered, you talked about a music director like earlier, and like we work with like Michael Rafter, who's like Sutton's music director and everything here too. And I just wondered how do you went about finding someone you want to work with? Like, I don't know if you have one that's like you constantly work with, or like.
I do now.
Okay. And
Yeah.
like, how do you like what's the relationship like, and how do you find someone like that, like who like you trust that much?
That's a great question, right? It's kind of like speed dating, y'all, which I would never do, because speed dating with musical directors is enough. So what I did was when I did my first cabarets, I worked with friends of mine who I had worked with before. Some of them were the perfect fit for me. The other ones I kind of was like, maybe our music style is not the exact same style, doesn't make you any less of a fantastic musician, but for our working relationship, it just wasn't going to work. I got really lucky when I did Finding Neverland. And I had a musical director of the actual Broadway show at the time. Her name's Mary Mitchell Campbell. She and I hit it off. We really hit it off. I had planned on using a different musical director for my first cabaret, or my second cabaret rather. And that person, just their schedule did not work with mine. And they were like, what if you use Mary Mitchell? So Mary Mitchell, for anybody who might not know, she is the musical director of Mean Girls right now. She's the musical director of The Prom and supervisor. She did Finding Neverland. She like runs New York. I don't know how she does it. She's such a boss. But she's Kristen Chenoweth's musical director. She's Gavin Creel's musical director. The list goes on and on. She and I became very good friends first, and then started to do shows together. And now she's exclusively who I work with. I only work with Mary Mitchell. It's not to say I wouldn't work with any other musical directors, because there are so many talented, fantastic musical directors out there. She and I just really hit it off in the way our brains think about music, and the fact that I can go to her with an idea and feel comfortable enough to say, I have this weird idea where I want to turn a Taylor Swift song into an acoustic ballad. And she could be the one to be like, you're a crazy person. Or she would be like, that's such a great idea. And there's no filter between the two of us. So I think it's going to be, I think for anybody, it's a trial and error of figuring out what works for you and who is going to be the person that'll be in your corner enough to tell you the truth about what it is that you're doing. Because at the end of the day, I want my show to be good. And if I have to take a couple of hits on things that I'm writing or things that I want in the show that just don't make sense, I'm going to want somebody to tell me that. That's like the whole ego and humility thing I was talking about at the very top of this. It's like, look, I want to think that I'm God's gift sometimes, just like a good old Patti LuPone. But I will never get where I want to go unless I have people who I trust that are with me and who are willing to tell me if it's the wrong move. And I have to be willing to be like, okay, you right, it's the wrong move, and be okay with it. But she's the best. She's who I brought out to Indianapolis, and we had the best time ever. It's how to move forward and treat yourself as your own business, and to treat your brand and your what you would like for your future as the CEO of your company, which I learned by going a very different route in my life. I worked in business for a decent amount of time, so I got a ground floor working of what it looks like to have to run my own life as if I'm the CEO, the CFO, the human resources, the marketing, the branding, the social media manager, the craft services table. I mean, it's all encompassing what it is that I do as Jessica. And because right now, at least for the next couple of months or, however long that's going on, we're figuring out these new tactics, like doing class this way and having conversations, and things might turn a little bit more virtual, which we're not used to. But in moving forward from graduating and trying to get into the real world of all of this, I think it's important to remember to treat it like a business as well, versus, oh my gosh, when am I going to be able to sing again or do a show again? Because there's a lot that goes into creating your brand, especially out of college.
This is kind of just a general question, I guess, but I've been having a hard time just establishing routine in a way where I feel like I'm being productive and still kind of bettering myself as like a performer, I guess, being the CEO of my own business in this situation. So I was wondering how you've been doing that, or like if you have any like tips and tricks for like routine in this kind of time.
That's hard, right?
Yeah.
It actually, I'm going on like day 24 of being here in my apartment with very minimal, dog walks. The best thing for me is that my dog needs a routine. Therefore, I have to have some kind of semblance of a routine. But I do think I have been completely thrown off. So, and I believe that everybody in the world right now is trying to figure this out. And there is no right answer or one way to do it. So what I have done for myself, which works for me, is I am trying to go to sleep and wake up at the same time every day. I think that's important. I'm a night owl, so I go to bed pretty late and I wake up around 10 or 10:30 in the morning. I have to move in some respect, whether it's a really long walk, whether I do a crazy, workout class in my living room. I have to get my body moving because I found otherwise I will get anxious and depressed. There are days when I feel like Superwoman and where I feel like I'm doing things to help the world or to figure out what my next business steps are. And then there are other days when I'm like, don't get me off the couch today. So I try and what I've learned right now is that I have a very new found respect for the word still. And as actors, at least what I have been taught in the past couple of Broadway shows that I've done is that stillness is a huge superpower, especially when it comes to acting and being on stage. Is less is more. And in our everyday lives, I know that I can attest to the fact that I am all over the place. I don't like to have to think too much. I like to go from one gig to the next audition, to a lunch, to a dinner, to a workout, say hi to Fred, watch some Netflix, go to bed. This is a whole different ball game now, because we're forced to be inside. We're forced to sit here and kind of go, what are my next steps? But I don't think that means, I pose this back to you and maybe all of you are you finding days where you're less inspired?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I feel guilty for it just because I know that other people have it a lot worse. It's like a pandemic. So it's like a feeling of selfishness and guilt almost. It's a weird experience.
Right. And let me say it to you this way, because this is something that made me feel a lot better once I realized it, is that right now being selfish is also helping people. So being selfish and taking care of yourself and being safe and social distancing and working on what it is that you want to work on is instead of being selfish, try and think of it as something that's also helping people. Because you always got to put yourself first. It's the true tale of I'm putting my breathing mask on so I'm okay before I go out into the world. And I am not inspired every day. I know 1,000 Broadway actors who are doing Instagram lives and living room sessions every 2 days. It's not something that I am inspired to do right now. And I did feel guilty about that. And I felt like, why am I not sitting here, doing an acoustic version of Defying Gravity for everybody? I'm trying to do things that inspire me every day. For me, that doesn't have to have anything to do with the world of theater, right? But it's those other things that inspire me, like cooking, cleaning, doing little projects around the house. That inspires me to want to sing at the end of the day. So to incorporate those little things into a routine, I wake up every morning and I say, or I have some kind of mantra that I say every single morning, whether it's we're all in this together. You are so much stronger than you think. You will get through this. Yes, there are other people that are much worse off than I am. So I'm not stuck at home. I'm safe at home. And when all of this is said and done, my God, am I going to hit the ground running and probably be thankful for the rest that I got. Right? So the positive in it, if you're going to do a positive spin, because I used to work in public relations, okay, you guys, so I'm going to put a positive spin on this for you, is that life's going to get real busy when we start to get up and going. There's a lot of things that need to be put back together in the world. And that's going to take a lot of energy from everybody, including all of us. And right now, I'm finding that having to be still and reflect on the next year of my life or 2 years on my life and what it is that I want to do is a very powerful thing. And it's sort of thrown me into a little bit of a routine. I do think that having a sleep schedule, I had a friend of mine that I did Wicked with. All of a sudden, she decided to say the other night, she's like, I am not doing a sleep schedule. I am just waking up when I feel like it. And today I'm working out at 5:25 in the morning. And I was like, absolutely not. So, and she was like, and then I'm going to sleep from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. and do it again. I'm like, no, our body, I need to have a routine. I promise you it will help all of us. We are creatures of habit. And I'm trying to start a new habit of writing words down, journaling, and reading before bed instead of sitting and looking at my phone. I mean, these are all things that will help because there's no rule book to this.
I have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned earlier something about representation and how you thought that was like something very important in finding before you go anywhere. Do you think that representation is important to find before you move somewhere, or do you think you can move somewhere and then find it? And also, like, what does that process look like?
Yeah, you do not need representation before you move. Please just let me tell you that now. Who's going to represent you without seeing something you've been in? Who do you want to represent you without actually knowing who it is that you are, right? I don't want somebody just saying like, yeah, I'm going to take you on. It's like, but you don't know me. You don't know what I do. Something that I think is fantastic is getting experience. So if you're going to go ahead and decide that you want to move to a larger city, if you want to try your hand at auditioning, do it solo. You don't want to have to, here's also my thing, guys, as working as Jessica Vosk, the person with her business hat on, I give my manager 10% of what I make. I'm responsible for the 90% on the other side. That's all me. I'm making relationships. I'm the one going out to events, talking to people, going to auditions. I have my business hat on all the time. So if you're going to take 10% of my paycheck, then I'm considering you 10% responsible for my career. I'm responsible for the other 90. So that means, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, you don't need representation right after you graduate. I know it's becoming different and everybody is joining Broadway shows before they've even graduated, or stop putting the undue pressure on yourself.
Right.
There's no need for that. And the more experience that you get, I have found so many people saying that they were very happy before they even joined a union, so that they could get the experience of doing a couple of non-union shows, which were really fantastic productions and had really great production value before they got their equity card and weren't able to do any non-union shows anymore.
Yeah.
There are two different sides to everything, two different sides of the coin, but I've gone through a couple of different agents just because of different points I was at in my life. You will find the right one for you. Get yourself into either a show or a cabaret, or network with people. I used to go to open mic nights at Birdland, which still has open mic nights and cast parties, where you go, you never know who's going to be there, and you never know who's going to see you singing on the stage. And those are ways for you to network with people so that people get interested enough to say, what are you going to be in next? Are you going to be in a show? I would love to come see you because I'm an agent and I represent these 5 people. So think of it as you don't need them as much as they need you. I always say that every time I go into a casting room, because a casting director told me that. We need you more than you need us. We are looking for somebody to fill that space. And we would love for it to be you. So take pride in the fact that what you do is extremely special, and don't devalue that by saying, I need to have an agent and I need to have a show booked by the time I move somewhere.
Yeah.
That's a heck of a lot of pressure, man, to put on yourself. Just keep working. I would say if you're going to move somewhere, find classes in that area, find a really good cabaret class, find a great writing class, find a great acting class, because within those classes, not only are you going to have a professor who knows important people, but you're going to have a whole slew of colleagues that are in that class who are also working. It's how I've done half of my networking are the classes that I've been in before I had an agent. And also, you don't want to give 10% of a paycheck you don't have yet.
So like, I don't know if you have any techniques on how to like slow yourself down while in one of those high stake moments. Cause it's like my adrenaline just like goes through the roof and I feel like I lose the thing that I'm there for.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, look, now would be a great time to acquire a skill of stillness.
Mm-hmm.
I will let you know right off the bat, because I'm as honest as it gets, that I am not super great at meditation and being still. I'm going to be real with you. I did a healing session yesterday with a friend of mine who was like, you could choose to meditate right now. I was like, I think we know how that's going to go, Cody. You know what I mean? I'm not, you want me to sit down for 45 minutes and be still? I will come up with a grocery list. Let's be real. So that is something though that I'm really trying to put into practice, because I can tend to also let my adrenaline get the best of me in situations. And then it's a snowball effect and you've kind of lost what it is you were trying to say in the first place. And that can happen at a cabaret, that can happen in an audition room, it can happen at a general meeting when we let our adrenaline get the best of us. So I actually love a physical warm-up, which you can do by yourself. And I would say you can add this to a routine that you're doing at home, but I teach a lot of master classes and I just impart this anyway, is that your limbic system of your brain is where your spine attaches to the back of your, to the bottom of your head, the back of your skull sort of, and you can put your finger back there and there's like this tiny P that exists where the response of like fight or flight, where, you know, oh shit, a dog is going to bite me, I'm going to run. That's where this is. And I learned a long time ago in an acting class to just take your hands and pat the back to wake yourself up. And you pat all the way around your neck. And you end up doing this. This is something for nerves, but it's also great for your body. And you will hit every single muscle all the way down your arms, your chest, legs, down your obliques to your hips, to your quads, hamstrings, and feet. That will wake up your body, but it will also give you a little bit of a sense of stillness by the time that you're done. It also gets rid of nerves a lot of the time. So I highly recommend it before you perform. I do it all the time. Shake it out. But I also urge you to choose a song that you've done before where you feel like you specifically move a lot during that song. Then I urge you to really be aware of the fact of what you're doing with your hands and what you're doing with your feet. If you are moving your hands around, sit on them and sing the song. If you find that you're going back and forth, this is something that I learned when I was doing Wicked. I would sing Defying Gravity and I would shift my weight. I've lost the audience. They're not watching me sing now. They're watching me have a party, a hula hoop party on stage. So stillness is a huge, 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 huge reason why people find so much success in what it is that they do. Stillness feels weird to a lot of us. The less is more tactic in acting, which I also feel is hand in hand with cabaret, is less is more. It really is the truth. Less is more. And you're going to find that what feels really awkward and small to you is not going to look that way to everybody else. And a lot of that for me is done with breathing exercises to really ground myself. And you'll see when I do cabarets, I take my heels off because it makes me feel grounded. I've done it in audition rooms without apology, and I've booked the job because I've been like, you know, if I do this in heels, I'm not going to give you being still or breath. It's the same for cabaret shows. So when I know that it feels that it's like, oh, I just like want to be able to say all of this and get it out because this is what it is that I love to do. But a simple, I'm so glad you're here. This makes me so happy. please enjoy this next song, makes people go, ooh, versus word vomit, which then turns into a much longer show than you wanted it to be in the first place. And you can't get yourself out. You can't dig yourself out. It becomes like this tornado that happens. I have been there.
I kind of just want to know a little bit about your experiences leading up to and during Wicked and how you stayed like vocally healthy during all that, because obviously that's a huge show. Yeah, just kind of that whole thing.
Yeah, I'm a huge advocate of vocal health, first and foremost. And all of us as singers, should be, with the fact that you want to do this, as a life choice, as a career choice. And I think of us as athletes. So when somebody says, what is it that you do? Oh, I'm a Broadway performer, which it's kind of an Olympic sport. When I did Elphaba, I had to learn very quickly about my stamina and what was going to work for me as far as vocal health was concerned. I was classically trained, and that's kind of where my background came from and why I'm able to belt and mix in such a healthy way, because I learned how to sing opera first. Every warm-up that I did for Elphaba, little known fact, hey Fred, love you, buddy. Little known fact, what I did for Elphaba was I sang Glinda's warm-up before I went on stage, every time. The let us be glad, let us be grateful, let us rejoice and fight, all of that stuff in coloratura. Because if you don't have that, you got none of the middle road. And also I would warm down before every single show and then warm back up. Huge advocate of and especially when you're doing a cabaret, for anybody that I've worked with in a cabaret setting, I'm a room temperature to lukewarm water drinker. I'm a Pedialyte aficionado when it comes to flying. If you're doing cabarets, you might be flying all around the world. If you're doing, tours, like a tour like Wicked, you're going from climate to climate. Keep that in mind. That's going to affect your voice. I went from Washington, D.C. in the dead of winter to Florida. Talk about a whole change in sunshine and humidity. And something that I learned very early on from my ear, nose, and throat doctor is that for most of us, injury to our voice is more likely to happen when we speak, with how we speak. So think about that. The tone in which I use my voice, where my voice sits, is kind of a middle to low alto range, instead of being up here, which would really hurt me because I'm straining so much. So yelling and all of that will actually hurt your voice more than me singing The Wizard and I did every night. But I also, huge fan of vocal rest, huge fan of steaming the voice. I lived the nun life when I did Elphaba every night. I don't drink anyway, but drinking will dry you out real fast. No smoking. I mean, you really treat your body like it's an athlete's body. I ran around doing Wicked for 2 hours and 45 minutes every single night, sometimes twice a day. The only break I had off stage was 3 minutes. The second act dress that I wore was 40 pounds. You are running up and down stairs. So I had a personal trainer who I worked with, because what it is that we do, all of us here, is extremely athletic. It's from the inside out. And in order for me to do that show 8 times a week, in order for me to be able to do 3 cabarets in a row, back to back, it's about stamina and it's about knowing yourself. And it's a trial and error sometimes. But for me, I can understand when I'm tired. When I'm tired, I go on auto, I shut it down. So everybody's going to be a little bit different. But any singer you talk to will probably tell you, hydrate until you can't hydrate no more. Now that we're in quarantina, I'm a cold brew drinker. Don't listen to me with the cold brew. If you're going to be singing, drink lots of water after you've had a cold brew. But again, I'm a vitamin taker every single day. We have to keep our immunity up as singers anyway. There's a reason everybody in my building says, wow, how do you have all those masks? Because I've been flying for years. I know where germs live. So we have to be very careful because this is what we do for our lives. And it will be different for all of you to figure out. I mean, apple cider vinegar, I drink it I have a vitamin corner, you guys. I've already bored myself. I have a vitamin corner that I go to every single morning. So for us to stay healthy and be the best version of ourselves can seem daunting because it really is, in my opinion, just as difficult as what any Olympic athlete does. It's just a different career. And Wicked was real hard. Going from tour to Broadway, they're two completely different shows. Tour, you move the same set every time. The stage is flat. That set has to move into every theater around the country. So the set has to be pretty simple. Broadway, the stage is raked, means it's on an incline. That actually is illegal now for any Broadway theater to do, but because Wicked was done in the Stone Age, the rake is legal, which means that it also provides a lot of problems for your knees and for your body to have to stay on a platform like this. You have to make sure that your hips and everything are in alignment. I still have several injuries from that show. So it's a very, very difficult thing. That it's not just singing, acting, and dancing. It's taking care of yourself pretty diligently.
What are you doing right now in quarantine in the city?
I'm trying to stay busy by staying my own version of inspired. And I hope that for all of you, that means something different to everybody. I don't think it needs to be, oh my God, I have to write a play today. I have to sing a song today. I have to write a song today. I have to, one up what's going on in the world because there's so much content being put out there right now. I can tend to get overwhelmed by that personally. If that makes sense to anybody in this class, because we've never gone through something like this before, right? And everybody's in it together. And it's this universal thing. I mean, I was just out in Indiana with Shannon and Tim playing the Cabaret, and like right before all of this happened, when we were all like, everybody use your Purell. And then all of a sudden, bam, this happened so quickly. So it was such a blast for me to be out there, and I'm so glad that I got to do that. And now it's kind of just staying as safe as possible until we get more information of when life can return a little bit back to normal.
I had a question regarding Wild and Free. I know we've got a lot of songwriters in this group and people involved in creating original content and stuff. And I would really love to hear about your process in writing Wild and Free, as well as the recording process and getting it out there, and like what was the inspiration behind the album in general.
Well, yeah, that's a great question. I had an idea. I've always wanted to do an album, and the first one that I wanted to do were mashups / covers of songs, because as a freshman album, that was kind of the path that I wanted to take. But writing it and putting it together was so much fun. I did it as a Kickstarter, and I did it during the Wicked tour, and the fans funded that baby in 72 hours, which was absolutely incredible. And it afforded me the opportunity to put a beautiful album together. I wanted to take my background, which is I grew up on my parents showing me Joni Mitchell, Crosby, Stills, Nash, Beatles, Rolling Stones, rock, Janis Joplin, Billy Joel. And while your girl is a Broadway lover, you're not going to find me, I'm not a jazz hands girl. So I wanted a little bit of both of those things on the album. While I loved Sondheim, I mixed it up with the Beatles. That's what I like to do. While I loved Billy Joel, I mixed it up with Elton John. That's what I like to do. I'm also a songwriter myself. The next album I put out will be originals. But for the time being, the album that I have out now, I think it did so well, and I was surprised that it did so well. As a person who writes and knew that I could write a cabaret show around that album, I wanted to have something to say, not just, here's a bunch of songs because I love singing.
Right.
I wanted to say something like, it doesn't matter how old you are, where you grew up, what you believe in, and what you do for a living. Everybody can relate to this music. Music is a universal thing. It's why we are sitting here talking about this. It's why we love what we do. It is why this brings like hope and passion to people. At the end of the day, what the world is going through right now, there's a reason why the focus is on art right now. There's a reason why people are looking to the artists and the empaths and the people who have something to say, because it's healing. And that's why I put this together. It wasn't just a vanity project. Yes, I got to sit back there with the musicians and put together this fantastic plethora of sound. And I got to work with all of my friends, which is something I highly recommend to all of you, is like, in your professional career as performers, in whatever medium you choose, work with your friends, man. Because they're going to be the ones at the end of the day who you're going to love to work with and who are super talented. And the fact that you can get both of those things is a friggin' win-win. So I had that when it came to this album, which then became fruitful for all the concerts that I did based on the album. So when it comes to things that you're choosing to do, things that you're choosing to write, stay true to yourself and the things that you actually love and want to say, because people are going to want to hear what you have to say. Especially right now with what's going on, I think a lot of cool art is going to come from this. And you might have ideas that you're sitting in your room thinking about as far as writing shows is concerned, or putting together a little medley of something, working with your friends. You know, those are things that are going to come out of this that you might be responsible for, which is really cool, and unexpected at the end of the day.